Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm really glad you guys are all here. My name is Mike Cisar, and that's my Bitmoji. If you don't know what Bitmoji is, by the way, you should definitely get a Bitmoji. They are awesome. He's really just here for moral support. Last week, I filed incorporation documents because, you know, I believe that I've actually set something into motion that will make the world a better place. And we call it Dindin. Really, Dindin is a dinner sharing app that helps friends eat dinner together more often. It's that simple. Here's how it works. Step one, post a meal. Okay, so you're gonna have a screen, name your meal, cuisine type, number of seats available, the date you're eating, what time it'll be ready, any allergens, and maybe some items that your guests can bring. That meal is then added to the feed, which I think is appropriately named for what we're trying to accomplish. Your friends can then basically pull up the app and they will see all the meals that are within their friend network and very quickly decide where they'd like to eat dinner. Friends save a seat at your table. You get a very quick notification that says, hey, so-and-so has saved seats at your table, so this thing is on. Step 4, big smiles, warm hugs, good food shared by all. You know, like dinner time. I have all kinds of ideas on how we can improve from our MVP, which is in production and should be ready in April. But before we start dreaming too far into the future, I'd like to show you what we've done so far and really kind of explain why my confidence is building in this. Some context, I'm a serial entrepreneur up to this point. I've got maybe 40 ideas on my phone. I've never had the confidence to pull the trigger on any of them just because I'm a really tough critic. And if I'm not tough enough, I assure you my wife is tough enough. She destroys my ego every day and then helps me build it back up. And this one actually passed the fire, which is really, really exciting for me. On February 25th, I created very high fidelity wireframes. It was the first time I had ever done that, but it was a blast for me. And I shared them with my brother, who's a back-end developer in Columbia, Missouri. And I shared them with my friend, David Chopin, who does a lot of front-end stuff. And the two of them together have really been working weeknights to help me bring this thing to life. And I'm really excited with the progress so far. But idea validation waits for no prototype, so I decided to get straight to work with my group of friends and figure out if this thing actually had legs. Started with Google Spreadsheet and Google Form to invite people to fill some stuff out, get some information out there. Set up a Google Voice number so I could text message and send notifications. Of course, Bitmoji enabled. And then gathered some feedback and really started just manually managing this calendar. And here's what we've been able to do so far. Sent out 40 invites. This is all just in the last 2.5 weeks. 40 invites, 13 people actually filled out a form. 9 of those 13 people became registered hosts. Those 9 hosts created 14 meals in the calendar, and from those 14 meals we have 52 user referrals. People are excited about this. And it begs the question, what have we got our hands on? We gathered a lot of feedback. I'm not one to read slides normally, but I realize that this is far away and it's kind of small text, and this is really good stuff that I'm excited about. So, contextually speaking, this is from Kate In. She's a friend of mine. She's a young mother, which, by the way, young mothers, that's going to be our very focused target demographic. Mostly for 2 reasons. Number one, figuring out dinner every single night for young mothers is a complete nightmare. It's something that my wife and I go through every day now. We have 2 little ones under 3. And number 2, young mothers, for all the right reasons, spend the most money in this country because they have a new household, they've got all new supplies, they've got all new ideas on how to take care of this business of people in their household. And I just think that to the extent that we can make life easier for them and bring people together, we've got something magical. So this is what one young mother had to say. She's also a small group leader in her church. She said, "I'm super excited about this. I've been thinking a lot about getting together with our friends more often. I'm so glad someone's finally building an app that will make it easier to see who's up for hanging out right now. What struck me about this is, first of all, this app kind of already exists. It's called Twitter or Facebook, but people don't use those apps that way, right? The functionality for that kind of thing, to coordinate people and events and stuff, people just don't think of Facebook or Twitter or any of the other social media apps in this capacity, which makes me really excited to think that there might be an app focused on this that could actually do something here. Another one from Renee. She's a young professional, no kids yet, but she's an avid socialite and she's always gathering people. And she said, I told one of my friends about Dindin. She was absolutely on board with getting invited to a dinner that I wanted to host, but even better, she said this would be a perfect app for me. And the friend that she's talking about is a young mother, and they've got 2 little ones under 3 as well. And they're very excited. Because of this app and because I told Renee to get on this and start inviting her friends, Renee and her friend Becca, it was the first time that they actually were able to coordinate and get together, even though they'd been trying for 3 months and they just couldn't sync up because of different life cycles. Regarding the functionality, so the other 2 quotes were about the idea in itself. Functionality, we gathered some data points on how we could make it better. Or what's kind of lacking from their experience so far, aside from the fact that we don't actually have an app yet. Groups was something that came through pretty powerfully. So right now, the way that we're thinking about it is, if you post a meal, anybody in your friend network on Dindin will be able to see that meal. But what if I just wanted to open it up to 4 or 5 people or whatever? So we're thinking about groups much like you would playlists on Spotify. Basically, if you have a reason to group people together, you can do that in a very playlist type fashion. Baby and toddler accommodations, this was one that I completely overlooked, but it's very, very obvious. Little data points associated to the meal that be like, yes, we have high chairs, or we have seating, or we have baby food, or whatever. Because anything that you can do that young moms have. Anything that young moms have at their house now to help another young family coming over means less stuff you have to travel with, right? So those types of accommodations, and then also recipe inspirations. 2 people in particular that I connected with that hadn't posted their meals yet. After talking with them, they're like, yeah, I just don't know what to cook yet, so I haven't posted anything. I'm like, well, there's Tasty for that, but we can certainly help feed that information as well. Which begs the question, why is there such a hunger for this type of app? And my hypothesis is really, I think it's because nobody, and I do mean nobody, is spending as much time with their friends as they really want to. I have 2,000 plus friends on Facebook, and I spend maybe 3 hours a month seeing any of them. There's just a lot of other stuff that can take over our lives. And the social fabric, I think, is suffering from that. So to the extent that we can actually bring people together around the dinner table is something that I really have a passion for. In my opinion, dinner time is the perfect time for that spark of organized spontaneity. That's a phrase that I've really kind of latched onto. It's like, okay, it's not just spur of the moment, immediate, but organized spontaneity. I think there's something to that in a way that gives people the freedom to back out if they have to, but gives people the excitement of getting together on a whim. That spark of spontaneity, I think, can be provided by Dindin. So what's next? Well, over the next 6 months, here's what we plan to spend our time and resources on. Official launch of the app. We're going to do that in April. It's going to be web-based, a progressive web app, and that will allow us to very quickly develop into native apps on iOS and Android in the future. We're going to have a strong push for user acquisition, retention, and referrals, just focusing really on how do we get people aware of what we're doing and how do we really drive that referral engine. I don't want to be telling every single person face-to-face what this is, but I think the concept is so simple that in the process of inviting friends to your meal on Dindin, this thing's going to take off. It's kind of got a built-in referral system that way. Concise feedback loop. So one of the things that I've learned in my time with previous startups is when you're developing a product, you want to make sure you get that feedback from your customer into your product as quickly and as concisely as possible. So I'm going to be focused specifically on making sure that that happens. And then monetization plan. Two ways that we're thinking about this. Ad space is the most obvious one, but I want to be very, very selective about our ad partners. Just thinking about the types of brands that are focused on doing good in the world in some capacity, but also matter to young families. And then friends and public toggle. This is something that would definitely be further on down the road, but if you're a VC in the room and you're thinking, where's the $1 billion opportunity here? I look at what Airbnb is doing with their experiences tab, and I think, okay, to what extent can we switch this toggle from just my friends to really anybody in the public? And to what extent can I monetize every seat at my dinner table, 10, 20, 30 bucks a head for an exclusive opportunity to eat at my table? And where does that go? If we start getting in the process of actually facilitating a transaction for the opportunity to meet new people and cook for them, that could be very interesting. It also opens up quite a bit of risk, which is why it's something that I don't want to tackle right now. Just want to prove that people actually want to eat dinner together still. But if Airbnb has taught us anything, it's that we don't really care if there are people sleeping in our beds, and I would venture to say we don't really care if there are people, new faces, sharing our dinner table. Getting involved. So the ask, right? This is the first time, by the way, I've ever taken this idea like public officially, so I'm really glad that you guys are all here. Please bring on the questions. But if you like what I'm talking about here, if you can see the vision, there's 3 ways. First of all, I'd love to have you guys host your first meal on Dindin. It's very simple. Plus, you'll get to see your friends more often, which is a good thing for you. And if you want to do that, I'd love to have your email in my database. You can find me, mike@letsdindin.com. That is where the app will live, is letsdindin.com. It's not public yet, so you're just going to see a GoDaddy domain right now. But that's where we will be. Introduce us to potential ad partners. If you know anybody that is doing good things in the world and would like to test something, test a new audience, we'd love to chat with them. And then introduce us to early stage investors. Specifically early stage investors that, again, see the value in trying to strengthen the social fabric of the country. So I'll take some questions. Thank you.
For questions, just please wait for the mic so we can get you on camera what you're saying.
Hey, Christian.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna go. Just gonna do it.
Dude, lay it on. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So I want to know about just your market research. So even the past 2 years, there have been a lot of companies that have tried and miserably failed, in a very dramatic way. They've raised money. There's been a lot. So have you really looked at why they're failing? One of the reasons is most of it it's actually legal, right? So have you really done the market research to understand why they're failing, and also even why Airbnb doesn't currently do it as well? So that's also another aspect of it. So I want to know about your market research.
Yeah. So, well, actually, if you want to keep the mic, because I'm not gonna let your question off the hook that easy. So when you say there are a lot of companies that have tried and failed, what specifically trying? What are they trying?
Yeah. So meal sharing platforms.
Okay.
So basically exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
One of them is home cooked. I think there's other ones. But even with the basic search, right? You can see how many have opened and closed their doors.
Sure.
I just was recently reading about one that they raised, I think, almost $1 million in angel funding, and they had to pivot because actually a big part of it too is that your top cooks, your top chefs that actually bring in the most money, they will actually leave the fastest.
Got it.
So you have high turnover when it comes to the top performers in your platform.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. So what you're talking about is a future state for us. That would be. I mean, I'd have to see probably at least 5 years worth of this initial idea of just gathering people for the sake of gathering people before I even think about opening up some sort of like monetization plan that allows people to just open it up publicly, right?
yeah, that's totally fine. If you're looking, like you said, you asked the community about investors. Like,
Yeah.
So if I'm looking
Yeah.
at you for investment,
Yeah.
that's the type of thing
Yeah.
I'm looking at, right?
Yeah,
If
I-
you just want to do it for community,
Right.
that's totally fine.
To answer your question, my market research on apps like that is zero. I haven't looked at it yet, mostly because I'm not concerned about it right now. We're specifically looking at our effectiveness when it comes to helping people gather together around the dinner table, right? And to the extent that we flip that switch and go from just friends only to a public, that'll come much later, if at all. It's just something that's kind of popped up in talking with people. But right now, our earliest and probably the easiest way to monetize is going to be ad space in the feed. We've also thought about a separate tab in the app for content, and to trying to see what kind of role content can play. That would require a lot of upfront investment, and I would need to look a lot more into how we monetize against that, what kind of effectiveness we could have from an ad space.
Yeah.
there.
So if you're gonna build out technology which costs, you need investors.
Yeah.
Which investor
Yeah.
to look at. So I would say is you may not be concerned about that market research, but
Yeah,
as an
it-
investor, I would,
right.
I would-
Right, and I have a big concern about it because right now I just want to get the MVP out there, and I haven't been thinking about 5 years yet. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Have you considered for-profit philanthropy style with this kind of well, the name is completely escaping Andrew's plans.
Gift a meal.
Like gift a meal style kind of revenue model where maybe cities or various shelters might be able to sign up and pay a modest fee, and they have kind of a direct pipeline where their people that are using their services can get on this app and find homes that are willing to give them a meal.
I haven't, but that's a good idea. Yeah.
That might be
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah, thank you.
I'm assuming that this could be either hosted at a restaurant or in people's homes, correct?
I want to stay away from restaurants.
Okay.
Specifically because, theoretically, yes, it could, because when you post a meal, you could put that information in there. The way that we're thinking about it right now is this would be hosted in your home, because that's where, if you go back to young mothers, going to a restaurant is not the most convenient. A lot of times as a young parent now, I travel with cash. I didn't used to, but I bring cash just so I can leave $40 to cover the bill and the tip if I have to leave without them actually bringing me the check. Because kids are a nightmare sometimes.
That's my second question, and more important. How are you going to integrate childcare? Because even when it's hosted at home,
Yeah.
the mother needs a break.
Oh,
And
yeah.
someone's got to look after the kids.
And that's the magic of getting together with friends. A buddy of mine here, actually, Joel McPeak, he's a very good friend of mine. They have young kids as well. And when there's 4 of us and we're not outnumbered anymore, now all of a sudden 1 parent or 2 parents can play with the kids and the other 2 can actually have a conversation. That's what's so wonderful about getting together, even in the comfort of your own home, while you're still around your own kids, which I would say I'd never want, even though you're around your kids, just having someone else there to deflect their attention and give them what they need in the moment is a very powerful thing, and even that is a very welcome break. So having other adults in the room with you, having a meal, having some time before and after the meal, it changes the dynamic of the evening, for sure.
As a young mother in the room,
Yes.
I love this idea, and you're right. I mean, community is sorely lacking just because, we can't act at that level of spontaneity anymore, just
Exactly.
texting somebody and saying, hey, I'm going here for dinner tonight. Whenever you do throw kids in the mix, things do get complicated. However, I did recently have a friend who was pretty ill, and it was amazing to see how friends really rallied around her, and I do see the benefits of an app like this in helping to facilitate that. I know that there's some apps out there that do like meal trains and that sort of thing.
Yeah, care calendars are a different thing entirely.
Yes, but along the same lines, even if she had just been able to communicate, hey, tonight, because it was really a day-by-day sort of thing with her too, and tonight, hey, I'm open, you guys bring whatever you want to bring,
Exactly.
that kind of community. And just to kind of go along with the comment from earlier about childcare, whenever you take your kids to somebody else's home, there's new toys, there's new movies, it's a new environment, so it's really exciting for kids to get to experience that.
Even if it's the same toys.
Yes, yeah, there's somebody else's,
You
so
just
it's more
build it up.
exciting.
Hey, we're going to so-and-so's house. Are you excited? Yes.
Yes,
The entire mentality
absolutely.
changes.
Absolutely, and it's cool to integrate your kids into that kind of an environment, and the whole sharing a meal together, breaking bread together.
Yep.
There's a long history of those types of meals being really important to share. So I think it's great. I can't wait. I'm going to email you a couple of links too to some articles, and then some other companies that maybe something to look into integrating or working with somehow.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I'm just gonna let it go for a second. I'll come back.
So it seems like your development plan is actually to run like a research project then for the next 5 years, because you said you're just going to stay in this kind of mode,
Sure.
gather data. Obviously, you start hitting the social psychology journals pretty hard. What do you think is do you have any expected hypothesis then for the outcome of this research that you're about to perform?
Yeah, great question. To call it research, I think, is probably overstating what I'm thinking. I'm not necessarily looking for any kind of like irrefutable evidence beyond just people loving it so much that they post to their Instagram feeds, they post to their Facebook feeds, just what a good time they had. I think the more evidence that we get out there of people returning to face-to-face time over breaking bread with one another, not only does that impact your mood for the evening, but loneliness is a real thing. Like, loneliness is a real issue that we're dealing with today. And I think that we can combat that with giving people a spark of, hey, there are people in your lives that actually care about you, that actually want to spend time with you, and can actually like meet with you around a dinner table and just spend time with you. Not an intervention, not like, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about your problems, but like just living life together. There's a very real need for that. And the experiment will just kind of organically take place. I'm not necessarily looking to get like change any like research or educational documents on like what all that means from a psychosomatic perspective. But when I say like 5 years out, what I really am looking for is in 5 years, if this isn't in the hands of like at least half the users on Facebook in the United States have this, then like that's what I'm thinking. I want at least half the users on Facebook or Instagram to be using Dindin. That's an experiment that I'm like, okay, we've got something we can monetize here to a large scale. Yes, sir.
A market I haven't heard you talk about. Again, I am the baby boomer, or one of the baby boomers in the group here this morning. But it almost sounds like one of your biggest sponsors on this and a market that you should be thinking about is that 55 plus. Because you talk about, living alone, empty nesters, loss of spouses. That is a huge huge market there. And I think one of your biggest sponsors, again, talking for the baby boomers in the group, AARP.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Tip of the spear being young mothers, just because that's what I'm around right now, and I'm not the most observant person, so unless it's smacking me in the face every day, I'm not inspired. But yes, you're absolutely right. The beauty, when I say that this idea has been put through the fire, we thought about, okay, who does this apply to? And who's going to find this relevant? And it's not just young mothers. It's not just singles. It's not just older people. It's not just younger people. Everybody wants to be connected to somebody. And really, if you want to get down to brass tacks, what I'm saying up here is dinner is the best time to bring people together. And if we can put an app out there that helps people think about that more often and plan even just a few hours ahead to say, hey, let's open up our dinner table tonight, have people over, regardless of age. Like, yeah, absolutely. And I think AARP will be a great sponsor for us. Do you know them? Can you put me in touch?
There's a contact here in St. Louis, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking about while you were talking about this is, this is really an application that takes people away from a lot of the people who want to. All that attention that's being grabbed from people is being grabbed by people who want to sell you things for the most part. They want you to consume other things with your time and with your resources. So I was trying to think about who are the people that you can cater to, double entendre, that might also profit from this. And I was thinking about companies like Shipt or other companies that do like grocery delivery, that could enable this type of community gathering and profit.
Yeah, Instacart is at the top of my list in terms of companies that I would reach out to and say, hey, what do you think about this as a channel for advertising? Because if I'm hosting a dinner, first thing I got to do is grocery shop. I'm doing it anyway, and I'm a customer of Instacart. I absolutely love their service, and I would be thrilled to have them on as an advertiser, just kind of little blurbs in the middle of the feed as you're thinking about your own meal prep. Yep, sure. Right behind you.
I can introduce you to Instacart. So
I didn't. What'd you say?
I said I can introduce you to Instacart.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. That would be great.
So what I'm hearing you say is basically you're trying to build like an Airbnb for meals. Is that kind of where you're heading with this? So
yeah,
you or your members can advertise meals they want to cook, and then eventually open it up for anyone to come and sample those meals if you go public with the postings. Right?
Yeah, if we decide to, like I said, switch that flip that switch from just your friends group into the public atmosphere, yeah.
And then are you open to, so there's lots of companies out there, some based here in St. Louis, that have massive amounts of recipes. So to Christian's point, lots of people have tried to figure out how to monetize recipes. This is a little bit different because you're trying to do recipes and connections, right? So the twist is interesting. I think you could potentially have something here. But are you open to like Kraft Heinz or, who has thousands of recipes that they would love to promote being involved in this?
Yeah, I'm open to that. I'm reticent to brands that, specifically young mothers on to a certain degree, that have like concerns about product label transparency in big food these days. Not to say that Kraft is an evil corporation, I don't want that on video record. But I do know that there are a lot of young moms who look for a more natural ingredient list. And to that end, yes, food companies that produce a lot of recipes that would like to have their recipes featured in an app like this is definitely an avenue. And I think if you combine that with the power of Instacart, Now you're looking at technology that basically says, here's the recipe I'm choosing, here are the ingredients that I don't have in my cabinet right now, and you just hit send, and Instacart shows up in a few, in the time frame that you need it to kind of make that recipe list complete.
Okay.
So we've been talking about things you can do in the future, but
Right.
an MVP is all about testing a hypothesis.
Yep.
What is your core hypothesis? Is it that young families need more socialization? Is that your hypothesis? And how are you testing
Sure.
that? Other than,
Well,
the danger with an MVP is getting friends to look at it,
right.
because they're all going to say it's great.
Of course they're going to say it's great, yeah. No, good question. So for the MVP, what I'm looking at is, will people post meals and will they invite their friends? If I can't get them to do that with the simplicity of this app, then I'm not going to take it any further. Or it's time to go back to the drawing board on the app itself. The other thing about the MVP is, I don't think, yes, investor money is going to be great in the future, but I don't need investor money to pull this off. I've got two guys that, we're going to have this done in April, and to service that, to keep it live on servers, to keep it secure, that kind of thing, that's going to be pennies on the dollar to pull that off. We can self-fund all the way through that. We probably self-fund for a year. I am trying, and the reason I wanted to squeeze into 1 million cups this month, because I've got my eyes set on Arch Grants. If we can win Arch Grants or even just be selected as a finalist, I can take that success and run with it and find money somewhere to keep us alive. But the beauty in this is its simplicity and the fact that it's not going to cost us a lot of money for us to get a year's worth of data and see if we really have our hands on something. But yeah, the hypothesis there is, do people want something like this so badly that they'll do a simple action of posting a meal and sharing it with their friends?
Any other questions here, Christian? Oh, got one more. Coming to you, Christian.
Potentially for young mothers or young families, maybe they can't just spend tons of money on one meal for a bunch of people that don't even know how many people are coming. Will there be a functionality in the app to contribute funds to the meal? Or are they just bringing that? Because I noticed there was one part where they could bring.
Yeah, great question.
Some food item.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're going. So first of all, they will know exactly who is coming. They'll know how many people are coming, and not to be included in the MVP as it's designed now, but in future iterations within the next year, are cancellation. If you post a meal 3 days in advance, you can also set an end timer on it. So if nobody saves a seat, and it's 2 hours away or whatever, you can basically call it off, and that way you don't have surprise guests, right? So that feature is coming. The ability to contribute to the meal is something that we've thought about in terms of what would be nice. However, we don't want to reinvent tools that are already out there. Venmo is a great way to just share cash, right? And I'm not going to try and reinvent that and spend development dollars when there are tools out there like messaging. We're not going to mess with messaging. These are your friends, right? So that's what texts are for. That's what phone calls are for. I want to encourage people to get back into actually hearing each other's voices and talk these details out. So things like that, those trivial types of features, we're not going to touch those in our development efforts. We're not going to spend investor money trying to build those types of tools. To the extent that there's hey, it'd be great if somebody brought guac to our taco night. Those types of details can live in the section where it says, is there anything that your guests could bring to liven things up? People will figure out their own way to organize, who should bring what, and those types of details. And if there's just a cash transaction to help pay for the meal, people will figure that out too.
Okay. Again, I really love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Building community around meals is something that's really, really amazing. And I think it's also very, very just American, just how we gather. One thing I really want to ask, so what's the business behind it? Really, how do you plan on really scaling, massive scale,
Yeah.
right? Can you talk about the business? Community part is definitely good and amazing. but business of like how do you create a sustainable business around this? I know you're like your wife, you know, she's the person that, you know, like, yeah, so tell me about that.
Well, when you say scale the business, are you basically trying to figure out how am I going to make money?
Well, also, how do you said like you wanted half of Facebook users, they have a worldwide user base, right?
Well, yeah, so I want half the users,
scale?
I want half the users here in the United States first. I'm not looking at the global market. I can't even wrap my head around that, especially not in the next few years. But
How do you
half the
scale?
so half the users here in the United States of Facebook in the next 2 years, the way we scale is very, very simple. When you create a meal, you send notifications out to your friends. Most of those friends in the early stages are never going to have heard of Dindin. It'll be a very easy registration process, and in order to claim, like save a seat, you have to have a profile on Dindin. The app is also designed to encourage you to host a meal of your own. Building on the fact that you just had a meal at Christian's house, wouldn't you love to replicate that, you know, in your own home with a new set of friends or whatever? The virality is baked into the desire to like meet your friends more often. And taking it back to the hypothesis, this is where everything will be proven out, right? I truly believe that one of the biggest reasons why we don't eat dinner together more often already is it's really awkward to invite yourself over to your friend's house, and waiting for somebody to invite you is a lonely endeavor. And wrapping, especially for young mothers, wrapping your head around getting all your kids together, getting all the details together, and like going over to someone's house when you have to force it is not that great. However, planning stuff out like 3, 4, 5 months or weeks in advance, it's just not great. But when there's an opportunity to just open up an app and see tomorrow night Christian's having people over, or he's got 4 seats available, and you just claim them, and it's mutually understood that you're going to go over and eat his food. Like that's the kind of like just technological reassurance that I think people need to catalyze this whole movement. I don't know. It's very, very basic, but I think it's very, very powerful at the same time. Our growth plan is going to be highly dependent on that. I could see us running ads on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. You know, it's pretty traditional. It's probably just pay to play at this point. But I would be much more inclined to allow the user base to rally around this and see if it grows organically, and then from there begin introducing ads in the feed in a way that promotes the best possible brands that we can find for young families and then other demographics beyond.
Thank you. Any other questions from audience here? Normally we always ask, what can the community do for you? You covered that in your last slide.
Yeah,
sign up for the app. So I have a question for the audience then, is how many people here have organized or gone to a dinner gathering with a friend in the past month or so? And how many of you would do so more if you had a tool to help in the process or had difficulty with it? So we're already...
Let the camera show that a lot of people raised their hand.
So all those people and others who didn't raise your hand, would you agree to sign up for Dindin once the app is available?
Yeah, still a lot of head nodding.
Yeah, all right. That should conclude this presentation of 1 Million Cups.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, come.